There is beauty hidden in everything. Just learn how to observe it. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Rockstars, this is episode 24 of Stuck on Sawdust. Rockstars, welcome to the shop. For those of you who are new to the channel, my name's Daniel with Bearded Viking Woodworks. Today's video is all about working man and working woman. Whether you're a woodworking man or a woodworking woman, or just a hobbyist or DIYer. It's almost Valentine's Day, and let me tell you from my experience, my wife loves it when I make her handmade gifts. So today, I'm going to share with you some simple yet elegant woodworking projects that will be sure to spice up your Valentine's Day. Now, I'm not saying don't do the bathtub full of rose petals and candles. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying handmade woodworking gifts for your significant other will be sure to get the heart fluttering. So, with these projects, I'm going to show you how to build these, but you can put your own spin on these things. Oh, sorry. Hey, and don't worry, for those of you without a significant other, these projects are the perfect gift and pack a big ass profit. So now that we got all that out of the way, let's start today's video with this badass heart propagation stand. It's basically for propagating plants, and my wife is a plant freak. Don't tell her I said that, okay? Anyhow, so I'm definitely going to make this, and I'm going to show you how to make this. Super simple, but it is an awesome way to put that smile on her or his face. And it doesn't have to be used for propagating plants. You could put spices in it, and you can make a stand to hold as many as you would like. We're going to make a stand to hold 2 of these hearts, and I'll leave a link in the description where you can find these glass hearts. So you know what time it is. Meet me at the table saw. Right, so I've got some leftover Claro walnut and some fiddleback maple. And I'm going to use this maple for the sides and the walnut for the bottom and the actual glass heart holders. I need to cut off this rabbet and these dovetails, and that should leave me with about 5 1/4, which is perfect. And that leaves us with 5 1/4. Now, I want to go ahead and cut my width, and I've got 8 1/2 to play with. But I'm just going to go 3 1/2 inches for each piece because the glass hearts aren't very wide, and I think it'd look kind of funny with it being over 4 inches. So we'll rip these down to 3 1/2 inches. For my middle and my bottom, I'm going to be resawing this piece in half, but I need to get this edge cleaned up. So I'm gonna run it over to the joiner and get this jointed real quick so that I have a 90 that I can reference against my fence when I rip this. Okay, so this is actually flat. So I'll go ahead and reference this face against the fence here and get a 90 right here on this edge. And that is perfect. So let's head back over to our table saw. Alright, so back over here at the saw, we will set our fence at 3 1/2 inches and go ahead and rip down our walnut. You never want to let your blade be any higher than it needs to be to cut through the piece you're cutting. Keep that in mind. A little tip. That is going to be perfect. Now, we'll go ahead and resaw this directly in half. Whenever I go to resaw something in half, I love taking my marking wheel and just eyeballing for center. Tighten that right up and just scribe a line right on your face. And then flip it and scribe another line. And usually I get it pretty accurate. So we're going to go ahead and resaw this directly in half. And we'll just line up that marking wheel line with the center of our carbide tip. And you should be pretty close to flat. I've got like a 64th that I need to sand out of this. There's no need to take it over to the joiner or planer. That can come out pretty easily with a hand plane or a 80 grit sandpaper, and then sand it back with a 150. But we'll go ahead and just get that sanded off, and we'll meet back here at the table saw. So now that we got this sanded up, we'll go ahead and get ready to cut our dados for our walnut into our maple. Our maple is 3/4 of an inch. So we want to go 3/8 deep with our dado. Our walnut is 3/8 of an inch in width. So we'll make a 3/8 inch dado by 3/8 inch. So let's raise up our blade to 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to mark the inside on both pieces so I don't get mixed up. And I'm going to pull up from the bottom a 1/2 inch. And that's where my dado will start on each of my pieces of maple. And so from a 1/2 inch, I want to go 3/8 of an inch. And that will be the dado width. So we'll switch over to our marking knife so we can get some good marks. And just make a little tick mark, lining our square up with our 1/2 inch mark and then our 3/8 inch mark. And then we'll make a little tick mark right on the side of our maple. And you can make this mark on both pieces. I'm just going to make it on one piece for now. And then we'll use a stop block to make the consecutive cut on our other piece. Now, as far as the top piece of walnut, I'm going to come up 4 inches, and that's where I will start my dado. So we'll go 4 inches and then 4 3/8. We'll take our speed square on our line that we made at 4 3/8, make a little tick mark right on the side so we can line it up with our blade at the table saw. And then line our square up with our 4 inch mark and do the same thing. Just make a little tick mark. Line up your tick mark with your blade. And then we'll move our stop block over, and that's where our cut will stop. And we'll set a second stop block up, and we'll knock our maple over and line up our other mark with the blade and set this stop block in place. Now we're ready to make our dado. And I'm just going to go ahead for shits and giggles and mark T for the tops of these. That way I don't cut them backwards. Just to keep ourselves in line. So we've got our stop block set up for our bottom dado. And we'll make both of our bottom dados first. And then we'll set up for our top dado and make those 2 cuts. And I have a dado stack. However, this dado isn't very wide, so we went ahead and just used our regular flat toothed saw blade. It's a thin kerf flat tooth rip blade, 24 teeth, and I'll leave a link to that blade in the description. I highly recommend it. And here we have our frame ready to go. So before we sand everything down and glue everything in place, I need to go ahead and make 2 holes up top And then we'll head over to the miter box and finish cutting our slots to hold our heart-shaped glass. So meet me over at our drill press. Over here at the drill press, we're going to pull in 2 7/8 from each side, make a little tick mark right about center. Then we'll get our marking wheel, and right at the center point we will scribe a line just in the area that we made our tick mark. Now we'll take our center punch and just punch these holes. And that should leave us with equal spacing from our holes with this installed into our maple with that 3/8 inch dado. And it should look uniform. Now, I'm going to add a backer to this piece because I don't want the walnut to blow out on the back side. And we'll go ahead and drill these holes. And there we have it. So we drilled for an inch hole. Our heart-shaped glass is a 3/4 inch tube that has an inch lip right on the top of it, and then the heart sits under it. So we drilled out an inch size hole. So we'll just take the very edge of our holes we drilled out and scribe over with our speed square. And we'll darken these up with our pencil. That way we get it nice and accurate. Now, typically I would use my jigsaw to cut out the rest of this. However, I'm just going to use my miter saw, and I'm going to line my blade up right on the inside of each line and cut this out with my miter box. What you want to do is just move both of your fences of your miter box in, making sure you're clear of your blade. Then you just want to hold it nice and firm against your fence. Make sure you're right where you want to be, and make your first cut right to your hole. Just like so. And then we'll have just a little bit where the blade didn't catch it, and we can clean that up with a razor knife. And there we have it. Now would be the time if you want to put some last minute touches on your piece. I was going to add a chamfer to the top, but I decided not to. I'm just going to get this thing sanded down, and I'll meet you back over here to glue it up. And we'll just add a dab of glue. You don't need much. We'll take our little brush and just spread that glue around. Oh, them damn geese. Oh my God. It's a good thing I don't have any neighbors, guys. We'll grab a couple of clamps. You don't need much clamping pressure. Just a little bit. Clamp the top and clamp the bottom. That is marvelous. We'll double check for square. Alright, we'll let this dry up, guys. I'm gonna clean up this squeeze out, and I'll meet you back over here when it's dry. I'm gonna go check on these geese. Rock stars, hear me out real quick. So, if you want to spice this up a little bit, get yourself another piece of the same stock you used for your actual shelf pieces at the same thickness, and you can cut real small pieces at about an 1/8 inch and glue them level with each shelf, and it will imitate a through mortise joint. So I'm going to do that just to demonstrate it for y'all. So I'm going to go cut 4 pieces at an 1/8 inch, and this is 3/4 by 3/8, and I'm going to cut them at an 1/8 inch. But first, I'm going to add just a little chamfer right on the top of these. And I think that would give it a nice looking effect. And you don't have to do this with a chisel. I could do this over at the belt sander or with the saw, but we're just going to take our chisel and do it right here. And over here at the miter saw, we'll just take and cut them at an 1/8 inch. Nice and slow so they don't fly away from us. There we go. So over here at our bench, I'm just going to do the top, and I think that'll get it a cool look. So we'll just mark the top shelf at the very top. Light marks, you don't want to mark too heavy. And I'm going to come in a 1/2 inch on both sides. And guess what? We're going to add a dab of glue. And we're going to do a rub joint. Just kind of wiggle it back and forth. And that should stay right there. And we'll add a dab of glue. Just like so. So I'm going to add these next two. And we'll put some finish on this bad boy. Alright guys, and we're going to go for a quick dry poly finish. And watch this bad boy come to life. Rock stars, let me top off this project with these succulent hearts. They're literally little tiny hearts on this succulent plant, and you can propagate succulents super easy. I haven't received my heart-shaped glass yet, but I've got some of these little small glass vases that are actually pretty perfect for this project. So I was happy about that, but man, you talk about spicing up your love life. This one will definitely get your Valentine to blush. So that's probably one of my top favorite gifts for Valentine's. However, this next project is another heart-stopping Valentine gift for your Valentine. And I'm talking about this badass succulent holder. Let me tell you why succulents are so popular for Valentines. Number one, you don't have to water them very often at all. Number two, it's almost impossible to kill them. And number three, they're cool as shit. So I went over to my wife's greenhouse and stole one of her succulent plants. And I'm gonna make a holder for this particular succulent. So instead of keeping it in one of those terracotta pots that I really don't like unless you paint them, I'm gonna make her a succulent pot out of some fiddleback Claro walnut. So meet me at the table saw. So my walnut is 1 1/8 inches, and it is 9.5 inches long by 4 inches wide. So that should be perfect. My succulent is 2.5 inches. So we'll cut each piece of our walnut 3.5 short to short. And that height of 4 inches should work perfect. So we're gonna do some abracadabra and resaw this in half. So over here at our miter box, I've got my bevel set to 45 degrees, and I want my grain to wrap around. So I'm gonna be sure to have it as a continual grain around this whole case. So let's go ahead and make our first cut. Now I'll make my other cut on my other piece. And this will be two sides that connect. Look how that grain wraps around. That is gorgeous. So we're going to be going 3.5 inches short to short. So what I like to do is I'll burn an inch past and line that 1 inch mark right up with the edge of my short point, and then mark 3.5, which in this case will be 4.5. So burning your inch and marking 3.5 is one way to do your measurements. However, another quick, easy way to transfer a short point measurement for a long to long, which is a lot easier to measure and cut, just take the width of your piece, which here we got a 1/2 inch, so we'll do a 1/2 inch times 2, which is 1 inch, and add that to our short point measurement. So we got 3.5 short to short, which in turn makes it 4.5 inches long point to long point. So that's what we'll be cutting our pieces, long point to long point, 4.5. Now we'll take our 2 cutoff pieces from each of those pieces we just cut, and what you want to do is transfer your long point right here at your short points. And cut those pieces 4.5 long to long. Now meet me at the table saw. So we got our first 2 pieces we cut here. The grain lines up beautifully. And we've got our other 2 that finish this thing off, and this grain wrap is going to be excellent. So let's go ahead and get our blue tape laid out. And what we're going to do, add a dab of glue. I wouldn't worry too much about sanding the inside because you're never going to see it. So we'll go ahead and get this glued up. Double check for square, and we'll let this dry up, and I'll meet you back here when it's dry. So I heard some knocking at my door. Let's see. What are y'all doing, boys? Alright, so what I've done here is I've got a piece of walnut cut down 3.5 by 3.5, and that's going to be our bottom. But I want it to sit proud of the bottom about 1/4 inch. And we'll add a dab of glue, and we'll let this dry. I went ahead and sanded everything down. We're all dry and finished up. I'm going to slap a quick coat of shellac on it and watch it come to life. Alright y'all, so let's get this thing put together. I went ahead and sanded it back down to 320 and just slapped 1 coat of shellac on it again. So I'm going to set my succulent in first, and I'm going to keep it in its case. And I've got some moss here, and we'll just get that shoved down in there just to take up some room. Alright, now I'm going to take some patches of this field moss. I just want it right in the center of each little square here. And then I've got some of these little succulent stones that my wife had hiding in her green shop. I'm just going to take and dump them in. and get crazy with it. Make a mess. I think she's gonna love it. Wow, rock stars, I had an absolute blast making both of these projects, and I made them all in one day. I really love how this faux through mortise came out. It looks so elegant and so unique, and I'm probably going to keep these little vases, but I'll determine that whenever I get my heart vases. But I really like the look of this thing, and this succulent holder pops with this walnut. I absolutely love it. Simple to make, and they can be customized any type of way you like. I'm a little disappointed that I didn't add any miter splines to this, or maybe a dovetail key to it, but I kind of like the plain modern look of it. And my bottom here gives it that shadow gap when you sit it down, so it is awesome and badass. I've seen these succulent boxes going anywhere from 30 to 50 bucks online. As far as these guys, I've seen them upwards of $75 for the one that holds 4. So definitely some profit to be made if you're looking to make some profit. But if you're looking for the perfect gift to impress your Valentine this Valentine's Day, these are the go-to projects. Quick, simple, effective. That does it for this video. I plan on putting out 2 more videos before Valentine's Day with some more Valentine's Day projects to impress your Valentine. Until then, this is Bearded Viking Woodworks, and I'm Daniel. Get in your shop and make some sawdust. Thanks, guys.